1.
Welcome to FESIG, the free energy special interest group where science meets spirituality in the quest for truth and knowledge to free humanity and transform this planet into a paradise.
Hi, everyone. Hi. It is Crystal here again. On the first Wednesday of the month, as usual, without fail, we are here for you. And today is the 5th of June, and we are having our 125th meeting. So if you would bear with me, I'm going to share screen so you can see the agenda for this meeting. All right, there you go. This is the 125th meeting. Welcome to FESIG. FESIG is the platform where science meets spirituality. Oh, hang on a minute. So it is, it's gone to the last slide. Let me just go up to the top. Before I can start, I'm thanking you for your attention. There you go. So it is a platform where science meets spirituality, where we all gather together to learn from some of the world's most brilliant minds, whom I carefully select to come and speak here at our Free Energy Special Interest Groups platform. So we all can learn together to progress, to be aware of what's going on this planet, to progress with what we have come here to do in this lifetime. In our divine mission, in achieving the goals of our divine mission. So I am your chair. I'm the founder of FESIG, Crystal God, and our co-chair, Dr. Fres Fressel, who is the head or principal of our FESIG Academy. He teaches all the R&D teams here at FESIG. In the background, we're doing a lot of things for you guys. We are, as we had described our mission and statements and vision in our website, we encourage you to go visit our website at truevisionofpeace.com/FESIG, FESIG.html. So we had completed the first session where we had Dan Winter returning to talk about the ultimate physics of soul. And it had been a very interesting session. He talks about life force, energy, and just explain, all the phenomenon of conscious awareness, gravity, and all that, as a real electrical engineer would explain, as we are all magnetic and electrical things and biological and chemical things anyway. So now we're finished with that, and we've adjourned to the second session where we have another very special speaker, Robert Maxxim, or Robert Gaetan, who will be speaking of dimensional energy transfer and generation. Mind you, Robert is like he's pierced the veil of forgetfulness. He remembers all he remembers his past life. It's very special. So you can ask him a lot of questions that comes to mind. And then he will be then talking about his new free energy invention. He had done so. Of the many past lives he had remembered, he had been tinkering around with that and brought it here in this present lifetime. And the energy sources, the energy generation system from Gamma Scuti 5, Atlantean energy generation power system, energy transference through dimensions into our plane is A432 Hertz, the God tone, fun with numbers, vortex maths, and the sacred number 9. I put this together because he asked me, what thing would you like me to talk about? So these are of interest. These themes, these subject matters are of interest in our group here. So we really implore that you share your knowledge with us. And the sacred number 9, solar energy with scientific evidence. He will explain physicality, the reality of creation from the atomic level, which I loved when I was listening to your interviews. He warned that those who are not using their intelligence and wisdom will lose it and their soul be absorbed. So careful. You must do something, exercise your mind. Okay, so your consciousness. Number 3. Right. So once we finish that with all the Q&A done, then I'll adjourn the meeting to the 126th FESIG meeting on the 3rd of July. Okay, folks. So pen that down. always the first Wednesday of the month. It never failed you for the last 8-9 years. 8-9 years. Okay, so and this is brought to you by me and FESIG team. If you want to write to me, crystal@truevisionofpeace.com. That's our website. And please subscribe to all our channels so that you won't miss a single video recording from any of these meetings we have with very special people. A BitChute channel, Odyssey. Join our Facebook to get all the announcements. We used to have a newsletter going around through MailChimp, and that makes it very easy for everyone who's signing to be a member. Unfortunately, MailChimp has required that we pay subscription because we superseded, we gone up with 3 times more members than is required for a free user. So unfortunately, that's been the case. And then join our FESIG Telegram channel so you can, it's @FESIG_group, so you can interact with every one of us here. As Press and I were very thankful and grateful that you are such a wonderful, refined, educated, knowledgeable, awakened group of people here. We're so fortunate. So you want to rub shoulders with, our team, our members here. So do join us. Yeah. Thank you. So that being nothing else on the agenda to share, I'm going to read the bio of our very special speaker. Okay. Robert Maxxim is the author of Legacy, the Legacy series that has been turned into a video series, so like movie like. So, and he's got books on Amazon.com on the what he had written. So this author, Robert, has experienced several sleep time visits to other worlds as a child and witnessed countless alien craft. These visions continue to date in both wake and sleep states. He studied concert piano starting at age 3, but changed his calling to science following his visionary experiences. The book is the culmination of these experiences shared with the world for the first time. The author spent 40 years studying science, religion, and the science of life, presented by Dr. Ernest. Hang on a minute. Okay. Dr. Ernest L. Norman, validating his visions starting on July 13, 1973. The author, Robert, proceeded to confirm his sightings and experiences with other established sources, such as George Adamski, and personally met brothers from other worlds that helped instruct him over the years. His book series is the result of such visionary and confirmation efforts written in novel form. Thank you. Over to you now, Robert. Take up the microphone.
Well, Crystal, Roth, thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here. There's a lot to be said, and estimate that in 15 hours it should be done, so I better get to it.
No, we got more time. If you have time, we can always, because it's very interesting what you are talking about. Go on then, Robert.
Well, the basics of the talk is energy, and we're all concerned about free energy. The one-liner I will give is that all energy is free. We just oppose it, and that's why we don't have it. What is basically energy? Classically speaking, there are a lot of terminologies to it. It is the ability to do work. It's a measured property in joules that is transferred onto a body and is conserved and is converted. It is not created or destroyed. It comes as mechanical, electric, gravitational, elastic. It's about 13 or 14 different types of energies. But today I'm going to create a whole new brand of energy, and I call it dimensional. Now, what this means is that in line with previous theories that have been proposed since the 70s, which includes virtual universe, intelligent Euclidean containers, as well as the core of M theory, string theories. every energy point is intelligent. In other words, intelligence is built into everything that surrounds us. Everything is a mind. It is consistent and it is convergent. Energy senses its environment. It reacts and adapts to other energies. It does what it's supposed to do, what it was meant to do. And it's based on smart if-then statements, if I can call it that. And it is inherent in every energy form. Hence, energy is designed and works in a matrix style. Everything that we conceive of is energy. Pulses, waveforms, atoms, cells, planets, even thoughts and ideas, dimensions, time and space. Everything is related to one another and made from the same stuff. Only differs in built-in intelligence and purpose, which relationally comes in the form of frequency. What this implies is that everything that is in our plane and planes that surround us is basically the same. What we've learned from science to date is that there is an avenue of science that goes towards little balls that go around other balls. And lately, these baryons have become more balls inside of other balls, inside of those balls are other balls. But if we take a powerful enough microscope and we begin to peer down, say, into a proton, and we get inside the proton, and now we see up and down quarks. And we zoom into those quarks, say one of the up quarks. We zoom into it, becomes a big ball. And now we look inside. And inside we're going to find other particle forms, etc. And we'll go through bosons and fermions and all sorts of exons until we find out that we just cannot go deep enough into these particles and find the source of everything. Find the instruction that turns these up and down quarks into a proton or a containment system such as a neutron. They'll take neutrinos, an electron or proton, and pack it, convert them into quarks, expand them out back into primary particles again through unknown methodologies. Bring in weak and strong forces, which actually make no sense. Because what you package in, there's no instruction known to change it into something else. And why did it change into something else? And why are there limits to isotopes, for example? There is a lot in this core science that is missing the point. And I'll get to the point in a second. But let's continue with that microscope. That as we get closer and closer into nothingness, we discover that there is more nothing than something. If we look at a hydrogen atom, for example, we look at the amount of supposed mass that encloses that atom, we discover, and the calculated number is 99.999999999% of that entire atomic system is nothing. So there is more nothing than something. What is nothing? Why is an atom charged the way it is? And why do quarks play a role in determining charges? And why is it that a neutron must be charged in a certain way with certain quarks when the amount of energy going into it is an anti-electron in a proton, which is 2 E's? It is all very interesting. Science is going down an erroneous path. I remember 1976 when I took my first physics class, and I was the revolutionary type. You know, I was the vanguard. I take up my sword and I stand up for truth. First page of physics is Newtonian force equals Coulomb force. R square on one term, R on the other, cancel out. You get the radius of the atom. Well, here goes Robert sticking his nose where he shouldn't go. Raises his hand and tells the teacher, "Teacher, can I go up to the board and I want to do a little something thing up there to do teacher's stuff. Come on up." So there are two Newtonian formulas, mv squared over r and gmemp over r squared. So I go to the board and I say gmm over r squared equals kq squared over r squared. R squares cancel out. Both terms should equal 1. Take up my slide rule, compute the divisor. The answer was 3.1 times 10 to the 39th power. Teacher tells me, sit down. So I sit down. After the class, takes me over to the dean's office. The dean tells me, you're correct, that this is what we have to teach because of national security. So I took off from that day forward. Sure, I made it to school. I learned what I had to learn to get a piece of paper. But on the other end, I was doing other things, some of which I just described. And one of the things I have come across is that nothing is actually something. It's actually positive. You have an atom with a negative shell outside of it. Simple electrics. Positive in the center, negative on the outside, positive surrounding it. I'll explain what that positive field is in a moment. But consider that in a shell, positive shell, what's going to be inside of it? Negative. Side of that, positive surface. Negative, positive, negative, positive. Where's it going to end? Another nothing inside, positive. So positive is something that's very important in our study of science. And positive, if you equate it, it would take me a long time to describe it. But if you're able to take a difference in energy, you can take charges and convert them to a frequency. And it turns out that a negative charge is a third of the frequency of a positive charge. So really negative and positive charges do not exist. A negative charge, 1 Coulomb negative, is the equivalent of sub-red or high infrared frequency, which is about 2.4 times 10 to the 14th hertz. Positive is 3 times that, roughly 7.3 times 10 to the 14th hertz, well into ultraviolet. That is the difference in polarity. So now we apply that to the atom. What is positive and what is negative? We're coming to know that the atom is nothing more than an energy pulse. It's more of a DNA type of structure. It knows what to do. It has genes. It has frequency genes. We see them in Balmer lines. Take hydrogen, push light to it, you're going to see the different frequency lines that it's composed of, at least a few of them. It is a packet of instructions that knows what to do. Clearly, energy is intelligent. Hydrogen atom here or over in Crystal's office is the same as the one in Fraz. It's the same as in Andromeda Galaxy. They're all structured the same. They're all convergent by design. A hydrogen atom knows what to do when it encounters oxygen. It can turn into water. It can turn into alcohol. It can become the basis for a lot of electrochemical components. It knows what to do as plasma. It knows what to become when it's frozen. It knows what to do when it's a gas. It can liquefy consistently, no matter where it's found. Has the same properties. And these properties have one source. Every atom has a specific source. And it all amounts to energy and vibration. So back in the 70s, I remember watching Cosmos. I enjoyed that program. I enjoyed everything that was scientific. And in a presentation for Virtual Universe, science then was talking about Z particles. And the higher the vortex of this virtual universe came to the fourth dimension, the Z particle was what controlled the flow of that vortex going into the Euclidean plane. Only problem was that for a Z particle to reach a fourth dimensional plane, it required the equivalent energy of an entire galaxy. So science was baffled. How can we have a virtual universe? How can we have strings yet under such amount of energy? No? How much energy are we really talking about? And what is a Euclidean plane? Well, according to Stephen Hawkins, it is the containment of everything that will manifest in a third dimension. So in other words, the concept was all of the energy, all of the instructions for the entire expression and lifetime of a specific particle, which I will call energy form, is designed in the fourth dimension. It comes to the third dimension, then it returns back. It flows back and forth, making the third dimension a matrix, a source. Kind of like a picture tube, like a TV screen, with pixels going on and off in a straight pattern. That's what paints our third dimensional reality. Mounted on top of that Euclidean form, then develop M-string and string theories, which is more the same thing, talking about 11 dimensions, etc., but it's a good concept to follow. Now, how do we end up with energy becoming solid under such concept? How do we couple together the concept of little balls and formless energy coming from the fourth dimension? How does that work, basically? If we don't understand, if we don't marry these two concepts together, we will never be able to achieve free energy. We will never be able to leave this planet and travel through wormholes, because these wormholes are based on also an apparition of a Euclidean plane. So our science has to stop using microscopes, and they have to start using interdimensional scopes. My belief, and this is not pseudoscience that I'm repeating here, this can be discovered on the internet. our future is in understanding how this virtual space works. Now, we have a couple of leads, and I'm going to try to present some of them today. First, we have to know what kind of energy we're dealing with. First of all, the fourth dimensional plane, or the Euclidean plane, is a vibrating energy source. I like to think of it as a circle, kind of a sine wave where the 360-degree point and the 0 point meet again. So it's a waveform that is constantly oscillating. Around that cycle, you have other cycles or other frequency planes. So therefore, the original cycle is more like a carrier wave. And you have other energies, vibrating energies, imposed on top of it. Due to Lorentz forces on that specific cycle, that's what makes this virtual space come about. It forces this energy to close in on itself and virtualize that energy into the third dimension. And then it takes it back. So it's like a breathing apparatus where Lorentz pushes down, pushes up, pushes down, and pushes up. One cycle sets the standard for a specific atom type universally and contains timelessly all of the past, future lifetime events that that atom will encounter. We can also call that cycle a singularity. Singularity because it is not bound by time. Today, it is believed that such container has the 3 dimensions plus time as well. But how can that be if in the third dimension we also have time? Now, Klaus also built on the fourth dimension, talked about the fifth dimension, and he described it as gravity to be able to have a fourth dimension. But then again, in our plane, we also have gravity. So in my mind, both the way that the fourth and the fifth dimensions are classified are not exactly correct. More so, it is my belief that when you reach a fourth dimensional plane, you have lost time. You have lost space. You are now basically energy and vibration, a true singularity. And it is the force of that singularity that makes it oscillate back and forth to our plane. And what kind of power comes to our plane? Well, let's get back to the Z particle. So theoretically speaking, atomic elements can live for up to 66 trillion years. And that yields millions of kilowatt hours during their lifetime. Now, to truly appreciate what this means and begin to grasp the vast amount of power inherent in nature, let's look at a single hydrogen atom, which is rated about 4 times 10 to the minus 14 watt hours. 10 to the negative 14th watt hours. So that's computed by taking E equals mc squared. So you have m of p, me, times c squared. It gives you so many joules, which gives you 4 times 10 to the minus 14 watt hours. This does not sound like a whole lot of energy, but when we account for the amount that that hydrogen atom is going to release over 580 trillion million hour lifetime, those few watt hours add up. And they are going to add up to a total of 24.2 billion watt hours. Now that's the equivalent of 24.2 billion nuclear reactors. That is just one single atom. Where does all that power come from? Energy is a pulse, and it adds up. So if you count all of the pulses that are coming down to our plane over that entire lifetime, that's where you get all this energy. Now, stop for a second and consider, what if I accelerate the lifetime of that cycle? Instead of waiting trillion years for all that energy to come, what if I collect it in 1 hour? How can I do that? Well, a nuclear bomb is not the way to do it. And as we can see, the amount of energy we get out of a bomb is a waste. If 22 billion watt hours or 80 trillion joules is the equivalent of an at-bomb unit, or about 19 kilotons, then simply 24 billion watt hours for a single atom's lifetime is over 1 billion at-bombs. The Hiroshima bomb, for example, it had a yield of about 14 tons. Taking the hydrogen atom's lifetime energy multiplied by at least 10 to the 80 atoms in a known universe, we can calculate that the power being expended every second in the universe is about 1 times 10 to the 63rd watt seconds. Now, if you take that energy, boom, bring it into the universe, you apply the energy and it's gone. How do we get it back consistently? How does it keep coming back? Relatively speaking, a value like that is equivalent to the release of a whopping 50 trillion billion million at-bombs. Now, wouldn't everybody like to have that amount of energy available? If we could somehow compress a single atom's lifetime into a few microseconds and extract all of its inherent energy, the amount we could derive from it would be 1 billion times more than kilograms of atomic fission. In fact, a 1.2 megaton bomb contains about 270 kilograms of uranium, 1.6 times 10 to the 9 times more mass than a single hydrogen atom, but it provides 17 million times less energy. That, in my book, is a heck of a waste of energy. Now, by the numbers, nuclear fission is extremely inefficient, let alone all its side effects. Consider all that mass that is being literally wasted and all of the side effects instead of being harnessed. We are unfortunately a combustion society and know no better than to burn stuff up to move other stuff along rather than to milk the stuff we're trying to move. Our automobile, we need to go to work, well, stop by the gas station, put gas and burn it up. We need to heat up barbecue, burn wood to create fire. We don't think of other forms. I like to think that we, even in our advanced science, we're still in the cave stage. But how do we tap into all that energy and accelerate an atom's total lifetime? If you change an element's time factor, you change its energy output. That change agent is simply called the Lorentz field. And just how do we do that? The secret is...
Could you repeat what field again?
The Lorentz field.
Okay, thank you.
I'll give you an example. Okay, here I have a charge particle. It's not moving. So relative to that charge, there's no magnetic field. If I move, or if the charge moves, now there's a magnetic field around it. How is that possible? And if I am moving along with a charge, and there's somebody in front of the charge, that person is going to see a field. I'm not. Isn't that the true theory of relativity? And that there's nothing that the present theory of relativity has to do with any of this. Why I mention it is because that is the secret. The movement of a charge is what's going to bring a magnetic field into being. A magnetic field, if you take E over B, is going to determine the velocity of a particle coming into contact with a field at a certain distance from the field. What happens when you reduce the magnetic field, or when you remove or stop that electric field from moving? Velocity becomes infinite. So what we need to understand is, getting back to what I discussed before, there is nothing, which is very important. It is a positive field. It surrounds everything that we know. And it's really the most important thing in all of creation. It's what there is the most of. Negative charges or masses is the minimum. Now, think of this. This is theoretical, but I will present it for the discussion. So we have that cycle that I described before. The Lorentz field is created by a 90-degree force vector. There's mathematics behind this. And that force vector is what is going to create this ring to wind itself towards the middle. We already have that Lorentz field pushing down. We have the electric field, which is created in time-space when that singularity becomes a point in the third dimension, right? So what do we have here? We have an electric component that determines distance. We have a magnetic component that describes time. Control the magnetic field, control the time, control the lifetime of the particle. Now, to that end, in one of my legacy books, I described a machine. Now, that machine was, as Crystal mentioned, was the tower of energy that was used way back before civilization started. Atlantis, we might say. Now, I had to go through all these studies to be certain that this machine was not a dream. It was not a joke. It actually worked. How does it work? It is a tower. Top of the tower is lined with ultraviolet lasers. And their purpose is to break down the atmosphere and reach the ionosphere. Create kind of like a funnel. And it does so by pulsating at about 35 megahertz. So you have these lasers pulsing up towards the ionosphere to create a passageway. Now, what do we find in the ionosphere? We find a path to Van Allen radiation. Now, where does Van Allen get that radiation from? Well, cosmic rays, solar rays, all sorts of rays, electrons, positrons, all sorts of stuff that rains down on our planet. That funnel then is able to bring down that energy. It passes it into a chamber. Now, a chamber is kind of like a laser where it's able to get the information in, it builds it up. It collects it, bounces back and forth, regenerates inside. When it reaches a certain amount of shall we say, energy level. It breaks through one of the lenses at the bottom of that laser chamber. It shoots down. It gets into another flute, and that flute or cylinder helps to modulate that energy back down to about 65 gigahertz or so, which then passes on to a series of coils. Those coils are tuned to change the energy to 300 kilohertz. Why 300 kilohertz? 300 kilohertz I've computed to be the base rate of this planet. And the idea of the machine was to pump the 700 microfarads of this planet with that energy. Yep, and it's going to mix with neutrons and electrons and other forces that are in the planet. So what we're doing is pretty much what we did when we were a little kid. We were taking a bath in a tub, and we started slushing back and forth in the tub, with the water. And if we slushed too hard, the water would bail out of the tub. So we were careful because mommy would slap us if we did that. But we could sway back and forth in the tub with the water and keep the water flowing at the same level. And that's what we're trying to do with 300 kilohertz. We're pumping at a resonant rate and converting the energy that is already inside the planet plus what's coming in into free energy. Once it is resonant, what can we do? Just what Tesla wanted to do. Raise a little antenna anywhere on the planet, and you have free energy. You can have free energy in a radio, in a car, in a plane, in a rocket ship. Limitless. But that is the trick of using the Lorentz field. And why is resonance important? Because we're playing, as I mentioned, at 300 kilohertz is a rate that is compatible with those two frequencies that were computed. Super infrared range and under ultraviolet range. Now, I can go into further details as to its mechanics, but that is the basics. There is another format. In that format, I don't know how much time I have left here, Crystal, but
you carry on, Robert, for as much time as you can spare.
Because I want to have time available for questions and answers as well.
No, I'm not strict on the timing on the second session because there's no other speakers coming in. Thank you.
Okay. The second format is around magnet. So imagine a kind of like a donut-shaped magnet, and you slice it into 3 parts. Now, it is magnetized around the circumference. It is not an outward field. That's very difficult to achieve. So the idea was to take one such magnet, magnetize it, so you have 3 parts, and put anti-magnetic coatings around the seams. You take another donut. This time you cut it into 4 parts. Anti-magnetic seams around it. You take another one. Cut into 5 portions. Anti-magnetic seams. Now you put the one with 3 sections and 5 sections on an axle. And you put the one that has the 4 seams on another axle. In other words, one is going to move, the others are going to stand still. What happens is that since they're all polarized in the same way, and anti-magnetism is going to stop magnetic leaks, this metal wheel is going to start rotating on its own. I described that on my second legacy book, and that is the Scooty 5 machine. So those are two ideas for free energy. Oh, yep, I don't think I have the picture there, but I was rather unprepared for that. But nevertheless, if you like, I can take a break and offer myself for a Q&A.
Right. Thank you, Robert, for explaining your free energy device that you brought from Atlantis to this plane in this lifetime. It's so wonderful. If only we could see it. But I'm going to share screen here, folks. So this is Robert's website, rgaetan for Robert.com. So, but you can actually, as I said, time and again, over and over, because people keep asking me for the speakers' websites, is always linked to their names and their topic of presentation in our website, physics website. Okay, so you can access any of the speakers anytime you wish, just by hovering your mouse over even their photograph or their name. It takes you there. So this is beautiful. The books that Robert has written, a series of 2, 4, 6, 7 of the legacy, 6 legacy series. Is that it, Robert?
It's 5 books in English. So far, 1 in Spanish and 1 in French. The other book down below is a book on theology, which is in Spanish and hope to have available in English within about a year.
Mm-hmm. Right. So you were talking about your free energy device. In which book would we be able to glean some information about it as what you had described?
If you go back to my website.
Mm-hmm. Hang on a minute. Let me just. Oh, okay. Going back to your website now. No, sorry.
No.
Yeah, there you go. Yes.
Okay. Go up to the title bar.
Title bar, yes.
And go to courses videos.
Courses videos. Yeah, got it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's see. I forget where I put stuff now. Yep. Oh, I had a video up there of the machine. I must have taken it down. I apologize for that. But
energy and waveforms.
yeah, that is a good video to watch, where I describe some of these energy concepts.
Mm-hmm.
It's rather long.
7 minutes.
Yeah, it's very long.
With others.
Mm-hmm.
Topic level.
No,
From
just
the interaction of energy as a derivative of those unseen forces that.
Right, it's rather long. That's fine. All right. So, and anything else in particular that the audience could actually dive into for more info?
That is the basics, and I make myself available for any questions that anyone would have.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna stop sharing screen now. Right. So I'm going to start first, and then I'll pass the mic over to you. Right. Unless you have really questions right now, but I'm really excited about what Robert has shared, and more than that, I mean, in one session, he can't finish talking about all those he knows that is impertinent for us to dig deep into, because in these turbulent times, there's so much uncertainty and so much going on. It's just, it's crazy. So we actually would like to know if you do, because you have pierced through the veil of forgetfulness, and you remember your past lives, you remember who you are, you were, and what purpose you have here, and possibly you would have glimpses of the future as well. If you could help us along, could you sort of like, are you allowed to tell us where are we heading?
Well, it's the whole matter of past lives can be pseudoscientific, and I try to be very careful with that information. In other words, I have to be super convinced and proven. And I've proven it by things I did not know that I have
You're known
seen
for
that I go
that.
find out, and there it is.
Yeah,
So,
you always try, you always make it a point to prove your hypothesis, and you're good there. So,
well, for example, how many people have I met in my life that are Napoleon? Everybody wants to be the good guy. Everybody wants to be Mozart. Everybody wants to be Winston Churchill. But I've never met Hitler in my life. So that kind of addresses the point. People give themselves past life knowledge to boost their ego. And that is not what it's about. In my case, I never believed that I was a musician. And it was not until I was 15 years old that I began to have very interesting experiences in my life, and I was helped along. The things I have seen are for a reason, and it was to build a better person, make a person get closer to, shall we say, the fountain of creation, and not follow the things of the world. And as you can see, I already established several battles with the system of the world. And it's not that I'm trying to change it, but I'm trying to apply it to myself. And if there is a way that I can share it with someone in a positive environment for a positive purpose, then by all means, I will do that. Did I live other lifetimes? Indisputable. The evidence is there. Are these machines from the past? Yes. Are they memories from the past? Yes. My knowledge of physics, how I've been able to tie it to corrections to the present classical admire philosophies. Yes, it's part of the past. Everything that we are now, we were then. Energy cannot be destroyed. And if we're made from the same stuff, not just this, but what's inside, as the rest of the other stuff, then we have the same source. We know already that energy undergoes a sort of miniature reincarnation. Doesn't it come and go? Come and go? That is a mini reincarnation. Don't we have thousands of established, proven cases, especially those of Dr. Ian Stevenson, Virginia University, that has put forth incredible testimonies of past lives. Kids that are 3 years old, a kid, for example, in Burma, and this is documented, that tells his parents, "You're not my parents. My parents live in Scotia. They're Scottish. And by the way, my address was such and such. I was killed by this man. This is where he stuck an axe in my head right here. By the way, I had a mark right there. I lived in this address. My parents were such and such." Well, they take the child over there. They go to the address. That so-and-so live here. Yeah. Uh-huh. Okay. And the kid goes over, "Oh, this is my grave. This is the man that killed me." 3 years old. How about the case of James Huston? 3-year-old talking about his P-51 that got shot down over Iwo Jima. Describes the plane, describes the ship his plane took off from, where he crashed. Turns out there was only one aircraft that was lost in that battle, and it belonged to James Huston. I mean, the evidence is just incredible, people. We have to take a moment to understand this and understand that our consciousness is also virtual, just like energy is, because it is energy. We also have to understand how spirit works. If we understand how an atom works, we can milk it. If we understand how spirit works, we can evolve it. It's all the same principle, the same science. And it's something that we have to start taking attention to. In my opinion, my contribution is very humble. I've just been able to dig into this and explain it to some degree, but it's much greater, much greater. It's going to take the principality of many scientific minds to explode this and bring it to fruition, bring it about. I like to think of myself as a humble messenger. And if in any way I've been able to provide something that will help mankind and our evolution, I seek no credit for it. Just the very fact that it can be offered and move forward.
Right, you did say that our future is understanding how this virtual space works, right? You understand it, and most of us don't. So you're talking about bringing this new energy from your Atlantean time to the present timeline to now. Is there any possibility of you giving us a sort of a indication of when you would be able to produce this device so it can benefit humanity?
Well, I am in Argentina at the present time, and I've been trying to build the simplest part of one of the machines, which is the Scuddy machine. Hasn't been easy finding magnets for some reason, but I plan to go to the States later on this year, and I'll see if I can source some magnets there. And they have to be built to specification. I have to get 5 different magnet rings, all cut to precision in different segments. It's 3, 4, 5, 4, and 3. And then the anti-magnetics. Because where you join 2 magnets, you have a magnetic field that is going to bubble on top. And any magnet that you run across that bubble is going to get stuck. The magnet is going to stop. So what you want to do is you want to enclose that meeting joint with an anti-magnetic strip wide enough so that the field goes underneath it and a magnet going on top of it will not sense that joint. It will sense this field coming in this way and this field coming out that way. It's just what it needs.
Right.
So that is the trick of the Scuddy machine. Free rotational magnets. Now, building a tower with, building a tower with sophisticated hardened crystals like titanium oxide barrels and things like that, that is serious science and serious funding to do something like that. Ultraviolet lasers, easy to do. Coils to 300 kilohertz, easy to do. Now, the barrels, to be able to contain the energy, that's what's critical. Today, we take a laser, we wind light around a ruby rod, and the light will build up inside. It has nowhere to go. The energy builds up, and the only way it has is through this silver cap at the end. and it shoots out, and you have this red laser coming out. Well, that is the idea of how this tower works. You have to accumulate that radiation in it until it is powerful enough to make it to the barrel. Not barrel, but barrel, B-A-R-Y-L, B-E-R-Y-L, I'm sorry. But during that containment, there is something that is taking place with those particles as well.
Right. Are you
Fusion.
doing this alone, or do you have a team to help you out? How long have you been tampering with this system, this gamma Scuti 5 Atlantean energy generation power system, which you call the barrel? Is that what you call it?
Beryl is the type of crystal that will create the containment for energy regeneration.
Okay.
It's a chamber.
Mhm.
See, it's a chamber where those particles will turn into a type of fusion state. And the fusion state is what accelerates the lifetime of the particle. It is not fission. Fission is basically the denucleation of atoms, the breakdown. And it is a scalar effect. You have neutron bombarding, say, uranium, and then you get thorium coming out of it, and krypton and potassium and xenon and other atoms that break down and break down, and you create a chain reaction. Where this is not about destroying atoms or breaking atoms or creating radiation. It's more of unifying through fusion these particles so that we're able to accelerate their lifetime.
And how is this going to work, Robert? Is it going to be able to produce and generate the power for the whole planet, the electrical power?
If all of the stars align and the moon is blue and there's not a cloud in the sky, then hopefully 1 second of regeneration should be able to power this planet for 1,000 years.
Has it been put into like use before in Atlantean times?
That's how things worked back then. And if I'll get now into some esoterical terms here. I don't like doing that too much. I like to stay with science as much as possible. But for those who follow the UFO subject, you will see objects up in the sky that expend enormous amounts of energy. Their light is so powerful, their field is so powerful, they're able from a large distance be able to knock out your watch, knock out your car battery, create an EMP pulse that can put to misery an entire city just by turning on their lights. It's the kind of energy that they have, and they are obtaining the energy through the same methodology. A few simple particles accelerating their lifetime and collecting their collective energy over the lifetime in a few seconds.
Wow.
Now, that is the idea. That is how these craft operate. They don't use gasoline. They don't use atomic rocks. They don't have boilers. They don't have any of that. And most of their science is based on electric fields. And outside, they create Lorentz fields. They have magnetic toroid fields. And this is all done to be able to change their aspect of space-time. You can do that around a ship to jump dimensions if you want to teleport yourself, to travel from here to Mars in a couple of seconds. But you can put that entire technology also inside of a little box, no bigger than this, that can help change the time factor of particles and accelerate them. As I mentioned, reducing and using a Lorentz field properly is what's going to change the lifetime of a particle. And that's how you can milk it.
Mm. Wow. Robert, from my readings of how Atlantis and Lemurian continents had their power sources, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm trying to relate to your Scooty 5, okay? Apparently, it's powered by like a moon that is floating above our planet. There is a crystal ball of a power station that provides energy that powers up the planet. Is that what you were talking about? It must be huge if your Scooty 5 is like that.
The Scotty device is a tower very much like the Tesla tower, but it does not, it did not, shall I say, play much with the atmosphere or the Van Allen belts of the world. Instead, it used this magnetic devices, this magnetic free-running motor to create energy. The tower was there to inject that energy into the planet. For example, I have this glass of water here. I don't know if you can see it very well. I hope I don't drop it, but I can tap it with a finger, and you can see that the water vibrates.
Yeah.
At a certain rate, there are certain rates where the water goes into turmoil, but other rates, I can keep it moving steady. That's what the tower is trying to do with the planet. The planet is filled with energy. The magnetic field traps particles. A lot of them run to the middle of the planet. There's radiation in the planet's mantle, and that's a whole other conversation. But some of the heating elements for our present-day heat crisis around the planet, the runaway heating up of the planet, a lot of it has to do with what's inside, not necessarily what's outside. If you look at the base of Antarctica and the base of Greenland, for example, go to NOAA's pages, you'll find this information there. You will find that the mantle is perhaps harder, more temperature underneath the ice in those locations than other parts of the world. And it turns out to be two magnetic extremes. It's rather interesting. Points where the magnetic field pretty much is coming in and coming out. That's what is the hardest. And where is that heat and that energy coming from? It's coming from the mantle. So the mantle is in a runaway state. Now, what more than to be able to control the mantle, to control the surface temperature of the planet, and perhaps do away with runaway heating. And number two, be able to harness that energy by resonating it all together. If you enter an energy source with resonance, you're able to put energy into it, and you're able to also extract energy from it. But if it's random and it's chaotic, you can't do anything with it. This is part of the function of these two free energy devices. One, to enter into resonance with the interior of the planet. Number one, to manage or administer the random forces that are there, control the radiation that's inside of the planet. By the way, doing that, you're able to also alter weather. And number two, put more energy into it if so desired. So there's no reason why you cannot take energy out of the planet. It's constantly coming in and coming out. Siphon it off. You're able to do that with resonance. But with resonance, you're able to put more into it. And doing that, you now have, say, stronger transmission of energy to other domestic devices. You can do it with an Atlantean type tower, or you can do it with a Scooty 5 type device.
So the Scooty 5 type device isn't like a crystal satellite like those Atlantean times power stations, right? And it has to be, your Scooty 5 has to be connected to the power source of Hollow Earth, like the Smoky Sun. Are you saying?
Well, okay. In the concept of both towers, there is no satellite up in the sky doing anything with it. Everything is internalized. What the Atlantean device does is it shoots powerful lasers up into the ionosphere to create a funnel. Okay, and the funnel is what allows energy from the ionosphere to then drop down into the tower, absorbs it, sucks it down. That's its purpose. Okay, for example, what happens if we have a huge anomaly in the magnetic field, say over London, and you have no magnetic protection over London? What would happen to London?
Yeah.
Yeah, burn up.
Mm-hmm.
Radiation will burn it. So what we're trying to do is we're trying with these lasers to create a sort of miniature anomaly. Break down the atmosphere, break down the magnetic field so that we can get that energy to come down and trap it and use it, be able to manage it, resonate it, and dump it into the planet. That's what the Atlantean concept does. And now the Scooty concept is different. The Scooty concept is not touching the atmosphere at all. It is using a motor to generate electricity and dump it into the planet. It's a more archaic, easier. It's an easier method of pumping energy into the planet and taking it out. The Atlantean concept is thousands of years in advance, shall we say, but it's prettier and it's more powerful. And sometimes greed is dangerous. So advice from this old man is start simple. Start with something like a Scooty 5 device, test that, and then as you learn, you develop these high strength titanium crystals, then you can start playing around with fusion chambers. I hope that helps a little bit.
Yes. Over to you, Press, my coach.
Thank you very much. And first thing, I'm going to bring our audience up to speed a little bit. The Lorentz force is basically by the name of Lorentz. His first name is Hendrik, and he was basically very active around 1865. What's really cool about Lorentz and his study, he basically says, aha, I've got this. It's applied to our AC motors, and nobody realizes it's part of Lorentz effect. And you can look, when you look it up in the internet, you'll see Lorentz's butterfly model. And he's taking two spinning fields, and I'll use my dodecahedron, which is Euclidean geometry, and we're moving away from a lot of this, but it's one way of saying you have a spin in a field, in a flat plane. Lorentz took that spin in that flat plane and bent it to something other than 180 or 90 degrees. So it sets up at an angle, these two planes coming together. Let's look at my camera to line up. These two planes coming in together as a V. What he found was the discharge was asymmetrical when that happened, because part of that rotation would stay in that other plane. As we go further into our understanding of the electrical physics, we almost have a complete separation of reality by the physicality of moving to these other Euclidean geometric planes, to where the first plane doesn't always see the second one. And there's some very strange things that happen in the line of sustaining the electrical force, as Lorentz describes. And I'll pause at that and let you go forward if you'd like, and then I'll go to the next one. We lose our guest?
You want to
Yeah, the fun stuff. Lorentz is one of my buddies in the physics books.
Good. I have a friend then.
He's my buddy. I love Lorentz.
It's, to me, it has been that magic key to make all of this happen. And you're absolutely correct. And that's what I saw in the fourth dimensional plane. You know, drop that time factor. This is what creates the virtual breathing effect, and it's bidirectional. I also saw that it works this way. Now, universal, no, virtual universe. Getting confused here. What's the concept? The energy was coming down from the Euclidean fourth plane down and then up. But best sense was telling me, no, what goes down is also going up. So it's this exactly. And guess what we call that? Polarity. And that's exactly where I found the differential of those two frequencies. And if you like, I'll go ahead and send you the mathematics, which is absolutely interesting, how it all comes together. But it starts with a simple difference in energy.
Yeah, we go to the other Euclidean, and I really have to finish my hot glue design.
Oh my
and
goodness.
It was based on the 5-sided solid, Platonic solid, dodecahedron. What's interesting, when you raise the center point, which would be on this model here, the X or the number in the middle coming up, you change the property from a 5-sided to a 6-sided, and it only shows up when you get it rotated to the right position on the screen. But it's that next octave. And where we find it funny is the next octave up from that 5, which is 6, doesn't seem to do much. But if we go to 7, all of a sudden, now we've got something that does even more. So we have these counter-rotating, and you have the 0 point in between as you go from one set of numbers to the next in these phi ratios and stuff. So it's really quite fun in the Euclidean stuff. That's as far as I want to go on that. You can get some really interesting shapes that's 3-dimensional, even on a 2-dimensional, by these intersecting lines. We go from that to saying there's no straight lines in the universe, everything's curved. We throw out the Euclidean, and now we become even more spherical. This change of octaves, each time you go to more sides on your polyhedron, the more round the shape gets. So we start to get to what you were talking about, the bubbles inside of a bubble inside of a bubble, but we didn't realize where the energy was passing past each other in each of these bubbles. All right. My second question, and this has to do with the last statement that you just made talking with Crystal. We have a device on this planet that a lot of our group has gotten very concerned about. And it's located, it's a Hadron Collider in Switzerland, the CERN, which is a large spinning rotational electromagnetic field. And then after they get through spinning things and crashing into each other, because they like to bombard one particle against the other in the middle and see if they can get something else out of it, they collapse that magnetic field into the planet. Electrical discharge. And what's really, really interesting about when they're operating the CERN Hadron Collider is that you have an action on one side of the planet, but you have a reaction on the opposite side, down around the Fiji Islands. Watch your earthquakes. The question that I have coming up with what you're dealing with is, if you discharge your device quickly, because you've got a lot of energy, you could set up some changes which are electromagnetic in the planet as a whole. Things like increases in earthquakes, or as you said, changes in weather, because you're changing the core, how it's being affected on a large scale. Most of the time we say, yeah, you're the flea on the dog and the dog doesn't really care, it's going to scratch you off. So not to be worried. But with the numbers that you were talking about, this could be quite a large number of, in volume of energy. So is there any concerns that you have on this line?
Absolutely. And one of the things I did back in geophysics was the study of exactly what you were talking about, earthquake waves, and how we actually map the core, the mantle, and now a subcore, and then a subcore beneath that. It's become a very interesting field of study. And yeah, you have to know how to deal with the core, how to deal with the mantle. There's now talk of the fact that the core is slowing down and the surface is beginning to catch up with the core's velocity. And no doubt, earthquakes and whatever else has been going on has had a deep effect into that. I have no proof of it, but intuition says the city of CERN, I would rename to Concern. But this is not the only one. One's in Russia. Something in Russia is going to affect something in the Popocatépetl volcano in Mexico. So it's something in Puerto Rico, in the Puerto Rico Trench. Guess where it goes straight down to? Celebres. It's almost a direct shot. You go to the core, you hit the core sends energy back the other way, it's going to affect it. We see it in earthquake maps. So one positive thing that can be done with this is perhaps to fix tectonic plates. But we have to know exactly how to do this. Yes, we're injecting a tremendous amount of power into the planet, but fools rush in. So everything has to be tested. Everything has to be equated very well. I think we have sufficient seismographic maps nowadays to know how energy is going to travel to the mantle and how we're going to normalize plumes, for example, geophysical and geomagnetic plumes out of the planet, which create like the Kilauea volcano, Maui volcanoes in Hawaii. Hawaii keeps moving, the plume stays there, keeps creating mountains. Now, if we break that, what's going to happen? Is it a natural process for continental shelves that are moving in and the soil beneath the ocean floor? It's not easy. It's not easy, but it's the beginning of a new science that can help us fix this planet. Something else that I'm going to throw in,
Wow.
which It's on my website. You can look it up. I used NOAA information from the Vostok ice cores, and those date back to 420,000 years ago. Vostok and other cores, for example, out of McMurdo and other places in Antarctica. They're giving us kind of like a tree ring history of the planet. What kind of sediments there were, what was the weather like, how much carbon dioxide there was, methane, temperature, snowfall. We're able to draw back to see what our planet was like back then, weather-wise. And what we're beginning to find are crests in CO2 buildup and drops, crests and drops every 75,000 years, roughly. We're now going through a crest in carbon dioxide. But the same data also told me something. Over the past 1,000 years or more, the carbon dioxide was holding a very steady rate. Within that rate, every 22 years, and mind you, Jupiter's orbit, solar spots, 11 and 22 years, there's a resonance there. What happens? 22 years, carbon dioxide goes up. After 22 years, goes down. 22 years more, goes up. 22 years more, goes down. Industrial Revolution comes up, 1836. Carbon dioxide begins to build up a tiny bit. Methane also begins to build up a tiny bit. 1945, the last year that this process worked. Look it up. 1945. What happened in 1945? We killed our planet. That's what we did. And if you look at the deposition of carbon dioxide, nitrates, and other chemicals into the atmosphere, since 1945, the curve went like this. No more cleanup, no more recovery. You can pull it up, Crystal. Go back to my website.
I
and
sure
go to
will. I was
science.
just about to do that.
Yeah,
There
and
you
I'll keep talking to the charts. Go to science.
Go to science. Okay, hold on a sec. Let me just
Mhm.
pull this away so I can see your navigation bar.
And while you do that, I'll explain what I mean. There is a way to fix the system. Okay, now we're there. Let's go to go up. Let's see, go up. Okay, science topics about the middle says global warming, nuclear damage. I think it's that one. Go up.
This
There,
one.
try that one. If it's not that one, it's the other one. Okay, go down. Go down. Okay, by the way, that's the Atlantean Tower.
Oh, cool.
Okay.
It looks like the Walton Cliff Tower of Tesla's.
I'm sorry to deviate, but I thought I would, now that I see it, yep, that's what you want to read. And the picture on the left is how to resonate one tower to another to be able to control the core. Okay, go back to science, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Go back to the science tab. It's the other global warming, is it real?
This one?
Yep, right there. Okay, go down a little bit. Okay, there we go. Okay, those are the ice age temperatures, and you can see how they fluctuate. The ice volume compared to the gas, Vostok and Epicus. The temperatures, drop down. There's a picture of the domes where the ice samples were taken from. Carbon dioxide, you can see that it goes up and down. It regulates itself over large periods of time. regularly 75,000 years, give or take a few, which I've equated to 3 precessional cycles. Okay, keep going down. Okay, keep going down. Go down. Go down. Go down. Okay, bingo. There you can see in the blue, the 22-year CO2 cleanse cycle. And you can see the ice core CO2 levels on the orange line. Look what happens after the nuclear test stage. Look at the blue line. We lost it.
Yeah.
Go down. Let's look at CH4 now. There's the cleanse cycle again. What happened in 45? Got out of control. Okay, let's look at N2O now. Nitrous oxide. Let's go down. Bingo. Same thing. 1945 is the date. As they say in America, everything went to hell in 1945. So what is this telling us? Where did this radiation go? Didn't go anywhere. It's in 2 places. One, it's in the atmosphere. 2, is beneath our feet. Anything that goes up, any particle that gets trapped into the magnetic field, guess where it's going to go? It's going to loop through the middle of the planet. It's going to hit the core. It's going to hit the mantle. It's going to heat it up. The mantle is already radioactive. This has made it more so. This is what killed the planet. Is there a way to fix it? Yes, there is. What happens when we want to dampen a high frequency? We throw a carrier wave into it. That dampens it. The lower frequency compensates, and it puts the high frequency rider on top as a crest over the physical carrier wave. Therein, if we pump 300 kilohertz into the planet, we're going to use that as a carrier against the high frequencies of radiation. And we're going to dampen it. The radiation is also, oh yes, go down for a second. Take a look at Greenland and Antarctica, where we're losing a lot of ice. Now you can see why. The only hotter place in the planet are the tectonic ridges. But places that have ice right now that are super hot, beneath the ice, Greenland and Antarctica. There you have it. Crystal, back to you.
Right. Oh, it's so fascinating. I missed this in your website. Thank you so much for guiding me through here. So all of us could share. I mean, could see. So do you want me to go back to signs? Anything else you want me to click on?
No, I think this is enough for one day. There's plenty more, but it gets more complicated, it gets more profound mathematically. So
you know, we can always have you back in another session, in another meeting, so you could talk more about the other areas of interest as well.
Well, what I like to do is maybe send you or send Fraz some mathematics that you could review and begin to see the source for all of this.
Yeah, we are interested in vortex maths and the sacred number 9.
Well, there is actually something about the number 3, and I already mentioned it.
Oh yeah, you did. Yeah, 3 is the one in the atomic level. Yeah. Oh, would you be able to elaborate upon that a little bit more?
Sure.
Is
The
there
number
any
3,
diagrams here that we could share as like a teaching aid on the atomic?
not a number 3, but basically the magic of number 3 is the reduction rate from the, shall we say, the nothing scope of creation to solidity. So if you take, and it happens in different scales now. So the frequencies I've given you for infrared and for ultraviolet, which are the difference between negative and a positive charge, it's only a base scale. Every electron volt that you go up, you're changing the frequency proportionally. Mass is also a factor of change, because mass is going to be basically the inverse of wavelength modulated by frequency. Frequency is going to stay the same. Wavelength is going to change. The higher the wavelength, the less the mass. The lesser the wavelength, the higher the mass. So now go back to chemistry and relearn molarity. You're going to understand why certain atoms have more mass than others. Avogadro's number and charge valences, all of that now changes altogether. Right? It gets rather complex because you have to unlearn a lot of things. I've even been working with silicon, looking at silicon as a case for resonance. We actually have atomic force microscopy pictures of silicon atoms, very clear. They do not look like balls. They look like bolts. And the head of the bolt looks like a mushroom head. And what's interesting is that, and Franz is going to like this, both the stem and the head of the atom, well, here's the stem, should be thinner. Here's the head, which is much bigger, are shaped in hexagon cylinders. And in each face of the hexagon are 12 very interesting things. They look like little balls, but they're stationary. We don't see any electron paths or shells. Rather, we see a stem and a mushroom head, which are created by these interesting hexagonal alignment of things, chips of some sort. There's a total of 24 of them, 12 in the stem, and there's 12 on the mushroom head. Why is it that the array, the depositing array of silicon atoms on a spreadsheet gives a design which includes 6 symmetrical wings, a factor of 12? Why is there a hub, and inside of the hub there is spinning energy? So basically, we're seeing that these atoms are nothing more than a gadget of sort, a designed gadget. Unfortunately, we only have a good picture of a silicon atom through atomic force microscopy. It should be good if other atoms were mapped as closely as this atom has been, so we can see their diffraction patterns and symmetries. But there seems to be a connection between the shape of the atom and the symmetry of their layout, their topography on a spread level. And we have to think also third dimensional, because these atoms are all aligned in a specific direction, but they're actually layered on top of one another in the same 6-wing format. Is it the shape that changes the taste of an atom? Is it the layout that changes the taste of an atom? Is it the number of proteins and protons, neutrons, and electrons that changes the taste of matter? Actually, I'm writing this in my new book, and I'm giving the example of what I call a straw apple. I throw a strawberry, a banana, and a piece of pineapple into a blender, and I make a juice, and I call it hydrogen. Okay, one is a proton, a neutron, and an electron. Okay, now I want to make helium, so I'm going to use two strawberries, 2 bananas, and 2 pineapples. I'm going to blend it up. Now I should have helium. Does it taste like helium, or does it taste like twice the amount of hydrogen? It's hydrogen, except twice as much. Throwing particles into an atom to change its taste or properties is not what it's about. It's what these particles become once they are in that registered unit that makes the difference. It's not the volume, it's not the amount, it's their code. And the thing I've discovered is that, yes, protons, atoms, they have DNA.
Mhm.
Look at mother cells in a human body. A mother cell is going to, upon the creation of a fetus, is going to multiply, and then it's going to change into a heart cell, a blood cell, a brain cell, a liver cell. How does it know to do that? It has the code for turning into that. It has the code to know the heart goes here, the brain goes here, the stomach goes here. The same with atoms. In other words, with the right resonance, so with the right energy applied, yes, you can convert a hydrogen atom into gold, just what the alchemist always wanted to do. Because that atom has the code for becoming gold. All you have to do is tune it up so that it produces gold. It's as simple as that. The codes come down, the atom forms. Again, you're changing the lifetime of that atom. Science already has it in their sights.
So the alchemist has
It's
a code book then, just so they can transition from one material to another. You were teaching in one of your videos about the reality of creation. You said the core of the atom is positive and the shell of the atom is negative. Reduction in frequency, and this creates our reality. So the electrons are negative, neutron neutral, and the negative charge is a factor of 3 times less the frequency. So would you want to explain the three? Everything in creation is 1:3, you were saying.
Yep, everything is 3. And that's what I was
Electron
coming
is
to.
1/3 of the frequency of the atom. Would you want to elaborate a little bit on that one, please, Robert?
Sure, I'll send Frost the formula so he can do a wow effect when he sees it. But that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with, first of all, a frequency phase, which is ultraviolet or near ultraviolet, and then matter or negative becoming what it is to a reduction of 1/3 of the frequency. And that's what forms the atom. The atom is sort of like maelstrom in the middle of a turbid river. That's what it is. It collects, it swirls, it gets its density from the swirl, and then you have a suction effect. And from that you have an atom. From that, you have a star. From that, you have a galaxy. 1/3. It depends on the number of forces. Shall we say the number of electron volts involved, which in turn affects molarity. Molarity means the density, or the number, to keep the same number of Avogadro particles in place. You need this much mass. So this is why some higher atoms are heavier than others. But again, everything is ruled by 1/3. And of course, 3 turns into 6, turns into 9, turns into 12, as we saw 3, 6, 12 in the silicon atom. Silicon atom.
Mhm. Right.
So everything is ruled by 3.
From the microcosm to the macrocosm, it's based on the same formula?
Based on the same formula. We only have, in the physical world, we only have 2 major resonances. That's it. Everything is built from that. They are carrier waves for everything else. All the instructions. This program is being transmitted through the airwaves over a carrier wave. The carrier wave is not the information. It brings this. It brings the video. It brings your voice. It brings Scott, Fraz, John, Michael. It brings all of those signals to my camera so I could see, to my screen. Those signals are on top of that carrier wave. Likewise, carrier wave brings information to an atom. What do you want to be today? Oh, I want to be uranium. Okay, uranium, you have X number of years before you turn into something else. I'm going to call it half-life. So in half-life, you're going to become, I don't know, cobalt. Okay, and cobalt in so many hundreds of thousands of years is going to become something else. Say barium. Not sure. But how does that atom know that after so much time, it will become something else? How does it de-evolve into another atom? Isn't that interesting? Instead of uranium running out of uranium, no, it turns into something else. So just like an atom can de-evolve to a lower atom, likewise, you can evolve an atom to a higher atom. Isn't that what stars do? Think about
Isn't
it.
that what our stem cells do also?
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what our stem cells do. They know, and they're able to process and create not only when the fetus is born, but think if those stem cells can reactivate, what can they do to the human body? Can they recreate cells? Can they rejuvenate? Can they cure dementia? Can they cure cancer? Everything is ruled by the same process. Everything already has the instruction in it to become something else. Our star, our planet, our bodies were created from sun fires. These atoms.
Hang on, Robert. One single atom doesn't have a free will consciousness of its own. It's connected like a human mandala of souls, right? With the ultimate alchemist injecting a thought, an instruction for it to evolve and transmute into another property, into another element. Am I right?
What you just mentioned is the key to the universe.
Mm-hmm.
Mind is everything. And sometimes it's scary kind of professionally dangerous to say certain things. But now that you have mentioned it, you've opened the door for me to mention what the key of the universe is.
Yes, please.
It's the mind. The
Yes.
mind is everything. Energy is mind.
Mhm.
It knows what to do. Like I mentioned when I started, it is what it is, and it is consistent here, there, yellow light here, yellow light over there, weak force, strong force here, over there is the same. It's convergent. It's by design. It's not by accident. There's no Big Bang. We're beginning to see what the other day, the Webb telescope discovered a galaxy that's 290 million years old after the Big Bang. It shouldn't be there. It shoots down the Big Bang concept. There's no such thing as Big Bang, and we're going to keep finding galaxies that are even further away, and they are looking like whirlpools, just like ours. These scientific concepts have to die, and we have to begin to understand what you said. The mind is everything. And here goes the professional risk. I'm about to risk my professionality by saying that an atom, yes, it's connected to a cycle in virtual space, fourth dimension. That same cycle doesn't just manage one hydrogen atom. It manages all of the hydrogen atoms in creation, all of them. It manages also all of the 6 or 7 isotopes that it can become. By mental relationship, it is able also to provide the instruction for that hydrogen atoms to a solar cauldron process to become gold, to become carbon, to become iron. Okay. Okay, Crystal, question. How many languages do you know?
About 4.
¿Habla español?
Sorry, say it again.
¿Habla español? Vous parlez français?
I don't know that. Sorry.
Sprachen Sie
I
Deutsch?
came from South Asia, so the language.
I was trying to strike a language that you have been coded with, so you would activate that code in your mind and begin to speak that language. That's what atoms do. So say that you speak Spanish. If I speak Spanish to you, boom, you activate. You, Crystal, are a hydrogen atom right now. If I speak carbon to you, you activate carbon.
Right.
That's how it works. What made this cycle? A mind made that cycle. A mind made all of the cycles in this fourth dimensional container that bring about titanium, that bring about gold, that bring about crystal, that brings about Fraz, that brings about Scott. Yes, Robert Maxxim is a cycle also. It's an intelligence. And inside of that intelligence are all the Robert Maxims that have been in other lifetimes, and all of the Robert Maxims that will live on this plane and on other planes, all in that cycle. And the only thing you're able to see now is Robert Maxim of this time when we have sequentiality. For the same matter, that's how you can see past times and future times. If Fraz has 5 fingers,
And I
they
have
look
5
normal
fingers.
to me.
Yeah, that's normal. We have an interesting concept. In science, we are in electricity, we call it Planck's constant. Planck's constant.
Oh, bravo, thank you.
Okay. But we also have a thing that we're discussing right now, which is now time. The past, the future, if doesn't matter, because changes have to be made in now time. What's interesting is now is the same everywhere in the universe, in the galaxy, and in multiple galaxies, this moment in time right now is shared. This is that 0 point. It's right now. Well, you missed it. Wait a second. It'll be here in a second. But it's now.
It's now.
When we talk about the frequency of the hydrogen molecule, it is ruled in now time through all the galaxy, throughout the entire universe, beyond the known universes that we're looking at right now. It's now time.
Yes.
So we wrap in with what you're saying right now. This is a consciousness in that moment of the universe, of the galaxy. And we are part of that co-creation. We cannot be pulled out of it or we are part of that process because we are allowed to make changes at this now moment. Now, that moment back in 1945 said, this sounds like a good idea right at this time and moment. We're going to detonate a nuclear bomb or a bunch of them.
Yeah.
But our correction of what happened has to be a correction in today's now time.
Yes.
Cancel. And that's all I wanted to bring up. That was
If I may.
And I thank you a million for that, because there are a lot of pseudoscientists out there saying, oh, we just entered another timeline, and what was going to happen is going to happen in this, kind of like Back to the Future. You know, I'm going to go ahead and enter a different timeline, or space aliens came 1 billion years ago and averted an asteroid, and now we're a different timeline. I've heard it all. And I always tell people, okay, sounds like a great novel, but you know what? Paper talks. Show me the stuff. Show me the evidence. And it's like, well, no, it's because he said that he said. And all of a sudden, the whole matter dies. But you were saying something is really cool, because it ties into singularity. It is the term singularity. The now is synchronous. And now imagine how elegant this whole design creation is.
It's
Everything
not
is
bound by time.
synchronized.
Yeah.
What a mind to put all of this together and create this reality. And I'll give you a little homework. The derivation for Planck's constant includes the speed of light, Planck mass, Planck length, Planck gravity. Of course, they are constants. That's all they are. But they rule our proportionality of measurement of mass and energy and other factors, including relativistic effects. But what happens if the speed of light changes? Changes the constant. I'll throw you another formula, which I use Doppler, but in the form of energy, and define observed wavelength times the square root of 1 plus c. And through that, I am able to obtain information where, say, a light beam hits our planet. At that point, speed of light. The original speed, the original wavelength, and the redshift through an energy calculation indicates the velocity was higher coming in. That invalidates relativity right there. Not only that, NEC, and I have this in the legacy book. I was able to put this in, NEC was doing a light speed experiment, and they were able to track to an experiment. I forget now how they did it, but they saw the speed of light climb to 13,000 times the norm. Light speed is a resultant. It is not a fixed graph for electromagnetic radiation. And the way that I see transmission to space, it's hard for me to prove it, but based on what I've seen, it's much like a Newton cradle. Light hits space here, pushes space, comes out the other end. It's not traveling per se. Very few places it travels, but it's pushing space. Or moreover, it's traveling through interdimensions, and it appears like a movement. It appears like a push, but everything is being dominated by that Euclidean plane, that singularity, and everything adjusts to that times zero you were talking about. And what happens to H? Invalidated. That's the real headache of a science of this nature. Where constants, you have to throw constants out of the field. You have to throw mass out of the field. And you also have to work differently with magnetism. You have to work with wavelength, frequency, and electric fields. You have to remove yourself from the concept of mass altogether and go to their source. It becomes very tiring for sure. But I'll let you see some of the work so you can see how some of this is derived.
Wow. How exciting.
Back to you, Crystal. That's all I have. I really appreciate our guest today. So the floor is yours, Crystal.
Do. Well, an interesting conversation we have here. And I'm sure there are lots of questions still from the floor. I could see chat's quite full. Jim has a couple of questions as well as asking if Dan Winter has got any say here on what Robert has put forward, and is Dan still around? Well, he's on. He's muted his microphone, and there's Maria Sue also has some nice questions. Press, would you want to go through it? Let's go check. Pick one of the most.
Got here. My bad.
Yeah, because time is running out. I think we are going over the 2 hours. Yeah. So if you want to do a lottery draw from that.
Oh my goodness.
I have a couple of things I wanted to clarify. Scotty here.
Yeah, go ahead, Scott.
Somebody else had asked the same thing in the chat. You had mentioned about the insulator for your scooter thing.
Yeah.
And someone was questioning, it's actually right there. Was it an anti-magnetic material? Does it block the field or divert it? Where you said it was an insulator, I believe. And my question that I wanted to add to that is, I've seen in the past somebody doing similar thing, blocking one of the poles of the magnet by using insulator type metals, but it was making the magnets lose their strength over time. And you said you were going to use ring magnets. You didn't say how large they were and how big the device is. And then you also said it's sort of based on the technology from Atlantis, which didn't they store large electric fields in water for the pyramids and for the Tartarian type structures, always had water there. And I would think Atlantis would have stored it in the water too. So why have it in that tube thing? You're saying, why not store it with what you have there? And I'll think a couple more things, because you also mentioned there were two things that control everything. I'm assuming one is the Schumann resonance. What's the other? And we're not about trusting the science here. So I think we're going to be trusting the maxims, like maxims of law, like you. And please come back again to FESIG and make a preparation. And maybe we can get another guest with a large following, like Marina Jacoby, and you can actually make a presentation or a teaching kind of thing where you bring your crowd and Marina brings her crowd, and we really get things moving at a basis where people can merge and combine our thoughts. I'll yield there for now. That's enough to throw at you.
Oh yeah, Scott. No, another hour here. I'll do it quick. All right. Yeah, there was no water storage. There was water storage in the pyramids, and they used slushing to actually create resonances in the pyramid and gas storage. It's very interesting how they did it. But in the case of the Atlantean pyramids, it was a 5 to 10 kilometer aluminum rod, and it was aluminized. It was an aluminized crystal with a ferric rod, and it went 5 to 10 kilometers into the earth, into the mantle. And that's how they sent all that energy down and also extracted it through that same pipe. And that came out of the solenoid beneath the tower. I can describe that in another meeting, but it's just running as fast as I can. The Schumann resonance, the 7.1 hertz, yes. Schumann is basically the result of lightning strikes throughout the planet, reverberating to and from the atmosphere across the surface. But yes, it is a base for the speed of light division across the circumference of the planet. So that part of it is true. That is also what multiplies back out to 200 kilohertz, which gives you the base rate for the planet. That is not associated with the 3, 6, 12 rates that involve positive and negative polarity in atomic charges. That's computed through energy. It's difficult to describe, but if you want, I can go through the math the next time, and I can go step by step how you take difference in charge and then use electron volt power and capacity to actually break out what the frequency will be, the resonance of that frequency at that charge. Now, obviously, this is a basic charge. It's 1 coulomb. Now, 1 coulomb positive and 1 coulomb negative. So coulomb positive minus a negative coulomb is 2 coulombs. Well, there you start. And you start that breakdown until you're able to get the number 3. So it's very basic computation. Scott, I think I forgot. The diamagnetic material. Yes, correct. If you use the wrong type of insulator, you could either divert fields, or you can corrupt fields, or you can absorb fields. So you have to use a special diamagnetic material. I thought, for example, an aluminized type material with other additives. I'm still working on that, but I have to have the magnet so I can test. The other thing that overcomes corruption of the field is the fact that there are 5 of these magnet wheels helping each other. So when one comes to a dead point, a pseudo dead point in between magnets, since it's divided into different sections, the other sections help push it over the edge and keep the machine moving. So it's 2 factors. The diamagnetic helps block that notch in the field where the field gets trapped. It keeps it all even. It rejects the field, does not absorb the field. You're quite correct in what you said. Plus the other breakdown of wheels, which are cut in different sections, 5, 4, and 3, so that they overcome possible dead points as well.
You know, we can discuss this in detail with our R&D team members. Yeah, we can schedule a meeting if you have the time, if you have the interest to talk to our R&D team.
I would be delighted.
Thank you, Robert.
My personal belief is I did not come here to get a Nobel Prize or get rich or be famous, but to help humanity through a better understanding of spirituality and science after applying it to me. So if there's anything that I can apply and very carefully release to the world for its betterment and avoid some of the Hitlers out there, I'm all game.
Because this is what we are about. We are helping everyone, anyone who wants to. When we get the funding, we intend to set up incubation centers anyway to help scientists and inventors to move along and complete the prototypes. So we're here for
That
you.
would be excellent. Finding those magnets has been so difficult because most magnets are sold field from inside to out. That's how they magnetize them.
Yeah.
Now this has to be magnetized along the circumference. So the only way to do it is making cuts.
Mhm.
And then say you cut half a magnet and another half. Magnetize this negative positive, this one negative positive, boom, clump together. Diamagnetic, you have the first wheel. Now you go to the next wheel. Divide it into 3 sections to overcome field lapses. Another one to 4, another one to 5. And this is how you make that push-pull effect between wheels. I would be delighted to have something like that developed. Now, I don't necessarily know what Shell Oil and Exxon Oil is going to say about this.
Yeah.
but certainly it's about time that those manifested super moguls begin to bite the dust a little bit.
Yeah, sure. Fossil fuels out of date now.
Let's stop burning stuff to move stuff. It's not right. There's an easier way. Like my boss used to say, work smarter, not harder.
All right. So, first, let's wrap this up. And
I think so.
Do a private meeting with our 4 teams with Robert. Okay. So, first, shall I then adjourn this meeting?
I think it's a good place. It's a nice end of the segment.
So thank you, folks. I mean, those of you who had questions in chat, I've been going through it quite quickly, and I realized that it's not quite it yet for your questions to be answered. Perhaps next time, yeah, folks. Next time, when we have Robert back on our public meetings, we will look into all that, and you will be invited anyway to jump in again. And I thank you, everyone, for participating in this live public meeting. And I am so grateful that our regular members are here, our R&D team members are here as well. And thank you, Franz, for being an excellent co-chair with your brilliant support, comments and questions that Robert loves so much as well. So
you're too kind, Crystal. They're going to think that us brothers and sisters here don't fight or they don't have conflict. This is you're too nice to me.
Oh, it's nice to meet you. And you've been with me since day one.
We don't fight.
8-9 years ago. So appreciate it. And Dr. Fresreza is teaching Leaps and Bounds, our team, on the progress, Leaps and Bounds, on what we are here to do. And we will be so delighted and so honored to be working with you as well, to be associated with what you're doing, Robert. And last but not least, I would like to thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here and gracing our platform with such mind-boggling knowledge and technology that you are sharing with us. Thank you. Namaste. And
My pleasure.
There being no other business now, this 125th FESIG meeting is now adjourned to the 126th meeting on the 3rd of July. Folks, please pen that down in your diary and join us again. And together, we will learn so much from our brilliant speakers. Thank you. We can stop recording now.